Recording. Yeah? Okay. So we are towards the bottom of page Kuf Ayin Gimel. Exactly 7 lines from the bottom. The line begins K'mei Shehu. And we will start at the end of that line. So with all the discussions and all the various mesholim of the name and the guf and machshava v'dibur and so forth, we have now summarized, so to speak, come to the conclusion of the explanation, how it is that oir has a quality, can be properly referred to as surah atzmis. And even the oir after the tzimtzum also is bibchinas surah atzmis. And throughout this discussion, we always use this, so to speak, qualifier. So bibchinas surah atzmis, bibchinas oir atzmi, and so forth, because we always explained that the qualifier bibchinas allows us to look into the essential reality, the essential presence, rather than to the apparent presence. Like we say in the moshel of sunlight. Light is over here, and you don't even have the sun here. The sun, you have to lift up your eyes and see the sun millions of miles away, and sometimes it's hidden behind clouds and you can't even see it. So therefore, the light is a kind of a real presence, even to the extent that there is a phenomenon that the light is actually deflected from objects. Therefore, it's mamash a mitzias. Nevertheless, that light has the element, the aspect of being of oir atzmi and surah atzmis, because of its dveikus to its mokher. As we explained, the principle of dveikus, that its whole presence is by the initiation of the etzem, and it is representative of the etzem. The concept of light is initiated by the sun. It doesn't exist otherwise. Even though after that it is diffused, so to speak, and it is presented at various levels, but the concept of it remains sun, and at any level that you have light, it is always reminiscent of that initial concept. This was bibechinas. As we said, bechina means that even though and in the appearance and in the experience even, one would say that this is an entity unto itself. But if you really think deeply into it, dover mitoch dover, what makes you relate to the light? It is that which initiated it. That's a kiruv, and therefore it is essentially remains surah atzmis. What does etzem have to do with it? Surah atzmis, and what is it? Oir atzmi. The principle of etzem is that it is a truth unto itself. It is not a result of some kind of a interaction of various forces. It is what it is. Etzem, as we always say, is directly pointing to a creator, to a super creator, who creates what he wants to create doesn't have to justify or explain. How do you make it work? I make it work because I want it to work. Period. That's the super creator. He is an Atzmi. He creates Yesh Mei Ayin. Doesn't have to justify. How do you, where do you get that? How do you make it work like that? That's what Atzmi. The Oir, wherever you find it, has an Atzmi quality. You can't explain what it is. It is there because the Atzmi is there. And it is reflective of the Atzmius of the Atzmi. And as we pointed out last week a few times in the principle of visibility versus tangibility, where you see an object and it is extremely real, I said even more real than by touch, but it's distant from you. How's it real? It's real because reality is on an essential level, intellectual reality, which is much superior to tangible reality, to experiential reality. Okay, let that be the opening, so to speak. Okay, so we are, as I said, 7 lines on the bottom of page Kuf Ayin Gimel, at the end of that line, and we said, the last line, we said that even the oil after the Tzimtzum, Hogam came bebchinas Tzura Atzmis. Shaharei Nizboer Liyil. Since that we have explained previously, there is some kind of noise online. If somebody has not muted his phone, we beg you to do that. Shahat Tzimtzum ein lehefse gomur legabe ho'er. That the Tzimtzum is not a total interruption relative to the Oyer. In other words, from the perspective of the Oyer, to say that the Oyer is completely interrupted. And after the Tzimtzum comes a new creation. It's not so. V'hareihu hamshocho mehoer ein sof shelifnei haTzimtzum. The Oyer after the Tzimtzum is a direct draw from the Oyer Sof that precedes the Tzimtzum. In other words, as we just now said, it has the principal truth, the principal Atzmius as the Oyer Lifnei HaTzimtzum. V'meyoy sham shechosehu alidei HaTzimtzum, that although it is nimshach through the Tzimtzum, and it goes through a. We got the echo again. That it goes through the gap of the Tzimtzum. Sharidei zeh nase be'erech ha'elamis. What is the effect of the Tzimtzum? It is that the Oyer is then becomes be'erech ha'elamis. It becomes something that is in proximity to world, meaning it has world qualifiers, parameters. Ukmeshin is boy as I explained before, and we explained.
The person. Every morning, the person is scratching or doing something with his phone. It distracts people here. It's absolutely a distraction to learning. I want to give this on his head, not on the phone, that he will realize.
Do you feel it?
If somebody doesn't mute his phone, and I have a feeling it's the person that's always talking about muting the phone. Things like a choir.
Coordinated.
Okay. Okay. Calm down. Let's not develop our ire. It doesn't.
Rabbi Paltiel?
It's not becoming. But yes, sir.
I have a question. Maybe it's not appropriate yet, but I'm struggling with this idea that all oil is called, or has, maybe it's the idea of Bechina, is Bechinas Tzura Atmis. So I don't understand, how do we say this on the one hand? On the other hand, we say that we spent such a long time explaining how Tzura Atmis is completely unique. It doesn't have any parallel really anywhere. It's not even considered a creation.
Yeah.
And yet now we're saying, really, all the other, even Achar Tzimtzum, is Bechinas Tzura Atmis. I can't grasp this.
Let us, for a moment, consider the following, so to speak, blunt question. Now listen to this, and I hope you listen to the end, because otherwise we're going to walk out Apikursim over here. We live in this physical world, and everything that we deal with, absolutely everything, is all tangible and a presence, so to speak, in its own right. And as the Alter Rebbe expresses it, that it is a metzius that does not point to any source. Ayin, I'm here. There is no mocking for this thing. And it is really a presence. Like, for example, any physical item you're sitting on the table, do we sense that this table is coming from someplace? No, we say the table is here, finished. It's not coming from any place. Our experience does not relate us to this phenomenon that it's coming from someplace. And yet, as we pointed out many times, when we speak in terms of the world being a creation, okay, I'm going to step back for one moment. This which we've described before that last statement, this is our direct experience. And as it was that before Avraham Avinu is the one who recognized a different truth in the world. The rest of the world was able to live in the world without detecting anything else. The only thing that they did come up with is there are different forces, deities in the world that are in constant conflict with each other. And the Sar Shamayim and Tar Shalish are in conflict, and day and night are in conflict. And there's all kinds of different forces. So this is also sort of reminiscent of the Inyan that's coming into being. But that itself, they concluded, is an entity unto itself. The water is fighting the fire. Day is fighting the night. And that's a real mitzvah. All the way down to the Greeks, they worshipped, even the Greeks, the philosophers, they also identified reality on a physical level. And yet, so even if we don't discover it on our own, which is also not entirely true. But when we are presented with the idea that no, the world is a creation, we can readily relate to it.
That the world is what? What was, I missed that expression?
It's a creation. We can readily relate to it. How do we relate to it? We relate to it by virtue of the fact that we, in our physical view, I mean, there's a much deeper element in us that demands this view. But starting from scratch, we relate to it because we recognize recognize a contradiction. We recognize a self-contradicting reality. Paradox, for the word. Recognize a paradox. On one hand, it's a tangible reality. I can't deny its presence. On the other hand, it is so finite, it's so insignificant. What kind of reality is this? How can that be real? So we recognize absolute reality in the world, and at the same time, when we examine the world itself, we see nothing. And for this reason, we can readily relate and recognize, that's the bebchinas, that this reality that we recognize in the world is not the property of the world itself. It is that which is given to it by its creator.
How is this a paradox?
Why, what?
How is it a paradox?
How can something that is very finite be so real? What's a paradox? You know what a paradox is?
It's like two things that are the opposite, but they come together.
Right. That's a paradox.
Yeah.
So did I answer your question?
If it's finite, and how can it be so real?
Yeah.
What's fake about finite?
Finite means that it is destructible. It comes from someplace. It was not here a moment ago. It was made finite. Here's the so to speak, hitting the nail on the head. For ages, people bowed down to idols made of gold and silver and wood, for that matter. They worshipped, the tangible reality, and at the same time, I mean, anybody who would not succumb to that draw, just to make himself feel that he has got some support, I would employ some intelligence, say this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And they say, what ridiculous? Look at this thing. It's real. Where is this contradiction? What is the error? The error is they attribute reality to the wrong source. Because this is a creation from an etzer, This is why it has this quality that it represents reality. But it's not its own. It's not its own. This is why, this is where you recognize that this oir, even when it becomes a mitzias, even it comes into a finite entity, a tangible entity, and still it stands for something extremely real. Atzmi, to the point that it can confuse people, they would bow down to it. Because they cannot explain what type of mitzvah is. What is it? It's so real, and they, what's mitzvah? We bow down to it because it continues to carry with it an inyan atzma. Why? Because it is representative of the atzma. And moreover, you would not find an animal bow down to trees. Only a human being will have them. Why a human being? Because a human being has intelligence, has a soul. Be it a godly soul or a human soul, but it's a much superior soul to the animal. And he relates to reality. When he sees this is real to him. The Alter Rebbe says, Baruch, you hear all of this, right? The Alter Rebbe says that the Gashmi, this is how I describe it. The Gashmi is a Metzias, such a Metzias that denies any source. Metzias Metat Atzmei denies any source. I want to ask a question. This phenomenon, this view that the Gashmi denies any source, is a real mitzvah. Is this something which animals recognize also? Do they also look at the Gashmi as a reality? What do you think?
I know the right answer.
They look at the Gashmi as is it my lunch or my lunch?
That's right. They look at the Gashmi only from a finite, from a functional perspective. What does it do? How does it affect me? Do I want it or do I want to ignore it? Only the human being perceives the Gashmi as a reality, and he can't ignore it. Why? Because he has this human soul. Because he is for real. So he sees things from a reality perspective. Because he has intelligence. Intelligence, as we speak all the time, is based on the reality of the soul, based on Rotza. Yes, he sees it as real.
Which part of this is the part that we have to be careful not to become a big person?
The part that it's conceivable people should bow down to a tree. That part. If you walk away at that point, you say, "Hey, let's try it."
And it was said, how is it said over there? He does this because he has human intelligence. He could be, the animal won't bow to the tree, the human being does because he's kind of appreciating the reality in the world. He's
not in the world, because he is real. So he sees the reality in everything. His soul is real. His soul is not precarious. His soul is not like the animal, like they interpret everything. He's only concerned about its survival. A human being is not in that vein of thought.
And then earlier it was said, and this is a mistake about the origin of things. This is like a misidentification of where things come from.
It is attributing to the presentation the reality of the presenter.
The reality
And
of the
we're saying here
presenter.
that reality of the presenter, that's the Bechinas Tzura Atzmis that we're talking about, that makes it all the way down?
Yes. Yes, the reason that it has that reality is because it retains the reality of the presenter. Like we always say, the clock is on the wall. And it really fits there, it's really real. Because what? Because the wall accommodates the clock? Because the nail holds the clock? What's so real about it? It fits in the human environment perfectly. And that's a real environment. What's a wall about? A human dwelling. That's what a wall is about. Not a bunch of bricks piled up one on top of the other.
As you were explaining this, I made a mistake with two thoughts. I don't know if it's a mistake or what. Let's say a stone. A person looks at a stone. As the Alter Rebbe explains, that the stone is a metzius for itself. It is its own metzius. So either a person could say that it's its own metzius and therefore it has a presence all to itself, or they could say, I'm looking at the stone and there's some other force that puts it there. I don't know what it is. I'll worship the force that puts it there. Or one person could say, I'll worship the stone itself because it is a metzius to itself and it seems to have a presence to itself. Are both of those possible in misconstruing what is there?
I don't understand the question.
A person could see the stone as, quote unquote, a god to itself. A person could see the stone as relating to a force that enables the stone to be there. The God behind the stone, not Hashem, but a force that put it there.
Not Hashem. What force is that?
But that's I'm asking. Is that do they mistake it for an undesignated force? They don't know what it is, but they give it.
Do you know what Hashem is?
Do I know what Hashem is? When I'm saying Hashem, I'm saying He brought everything into existence. He's the.
So what's the difference?
Well, okay, in that one that says that there's a source behind the stone, he doesn't know what to attribute. He senses there's some force behind it. He doesn't know what it is, but he just gives it.
Do you know what it is? You see?
If I know what it is, then I can answer my question.
No. I'll explain to you where your question is coming from.
My question is coming from this, from what
your question is coming from when you say Hashem, you're thinking of some kind of a isolated entity. Because you're so used to saying Hashem, oh, it's Him. It's not true. There's no isolated entity. It's a reference to infinity, beyond infinity. To reality itself and beyond reality. Because reality, this is how he presents himself. He wanted to be an oil, not reality. We have no reference at all.
You're saying reality and beyond reality? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because our terminology of reality is still relative. All right. So this is our class this morning, and it's absolutely fine. I hope we begin to think. No, it's fine. It's not off track. It's not off track. I mean, this is the place where I was hoping. I mean, this question, that question, you understand the message here. What's so important, like we've a few times over there, what's so important about saying, I don't know it, I don't understand it, so what? So what's the big deal? If you don't know it, you don't understand it. So go do what you can do understand.
What are you referring to now?
Throughout this thing, from time to time, I would stop and explain what are we focusing on, what's the significance of this whole discussion.
What's at stake?
Yeah, what is the point in engaging us? Why did the Rebbe say this minor? What is this Torah? Torah is Meloshen Hira. What does it teach us? The Rebbe does not engage in academics, in academic philosophy. Pnimis HaTorah is Pnimis HaTorah, Pnimis HaYirah. What is it referred to? All right, this is it. Yeah. Have a good day. Till tomorrow morning, we'll see.
Cause of your word, even kinder than mom and you I prefer over and above the world. Oh, I won't fade away, cause the very next day, back in strength and here to stay, reflecting like the moon. Oh, 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 na-ni-na. Oh.